now it's my turn to do the thing. Hi, my name is Margaret, and I'm gonna tell you all the books that I read in 2024 and how I felt about them. So first things first, they are almost all of them completely fantasy romance books, because that's just what I wanted to read in 2024. The year before, it was every Stephen King, and I made it a third of the way through and then watched the movies for another third of them, and then if you ask me to explain a Stephen King to you, I'll be like, I don't know that one. But he's actually done so much. Anyway, this year was all about fantasy romance, and I think I'm kind of still on this train right now, so I'll just still be reading that. Let's start with January. So I started with Tower of Dawn and Kingdom of Ash, which means I was finishing up the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. They are beloved books, and the last ones are, I think, pretty good. I think a lot of fantasy authors, even fantasy romance authors especially, will write themselves into a war. Like they have to now solve a war, and I think that oftentimes the characters will get boring because it's like, okay, now we gotta fight, and they just train, I guess. But like the original story was about, I don't know, a romance or about building a world or something. But I think in this case, Sarah J. Maas actually did a pretty good job of finishing out the books and giving us points of view of other characters and letting like almost everybody have a love story in it. Manon for life. No wait, I like the one, she's got the foot thing. I liked hers. And the guy, Lorcan? You know what I'm talking about. If you do, and if you don't, then I don't know, read the books. They're like kind of teen-y, but also kind of not. I enjoyed them. Also in January, I read the first two Crescent City books, keeping on the Sarah J. Maas train. The first one I loved. I thought it was really cool. I really shouldn't have read it right after Throne of Glass because I was really like flipped out by the email that she sends in the first scene. I'm like, wait, no, this is fantasy. The first one's really good. I love the like Danica plotline. I love the like she's gotta fight against the angels. But then I read the second one, House of Sky and Breath, and I think that the books, the characters got less likable the farther you went in, and I stopped caring as much about their journeys. I stopped caring as much about their romances. I didn't really like Bryce's romance. I loved Bryce as a character, but then, and I will say that the second book really sets up a crossover episode with another thing, and we'll get to that in February because that is when I finished the series. Next, I read Fall of Ruin and Wrath by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and full transparency, From Blood and Ash got me into fantasy romance and honestly got me into reading. So I like these vampires. I like them. I like how dumb they are. I like how low the stakes seem to be, even though they're very high. I like things that are a little bit silly and a little bit stupid. Sorry if that's not how you understand those books or feel like they are. Fall of Ruin and Wrath kind of felt like half of a book because it sets up a whole new type of world. It's not a part of a different series, it's its own thing, but it didn't, nothing really happened as much as not enough happened, I think. It was kind of a shorter one too, compared to the tomes I've been reading most of the time. So I'm interested to know what happens next. It was kind of like a 3 out of 5 for me. So I said that I like it when something is a little dumb. I like it when it's a little goofy. I like when the stakes aren't very high because it's like, this is clearly a made-up world and you've got made-up problems. I started in January and finished the Broken Bonds series by Jay Bree, which they're mostly smut, reverse harem. I don't know what I can say on YouTube, but it did sort of open my eyes as to what fantasy romance could be. You know? I mean, why not? You got 1, you got 2, you got 3, you got 4, you got 5. She's got 5. What's wrong with that? And everybody's got superpowers, okay? We're basically X-Men, and of course, so here's another thing I like about fantasy romance, is that it's not just about doing things with people, if you know what I mean. It's about her becoming like incredibly powerful and respected, which, hell yeah, dude. That's a fantasy for me. Is that too depressing? Sorry, depressed girl shit. I would love to be respected. Anyway, so Broken Bond series was like kind of written like a fanfic. Seemed a little self-published, but I don't think it is. But I will say that like if you are fine with a lot of trigger warnings, if you are okay with basically anything going and you want to see some stuff, then I got into some less spicy but more betterer books. The Cruel Prince, written by Holly Black. I think they are incredible books. I think it's an incredible series. I was like, wait, I'm reading something that's well written, subtle and detailed, and the characters are very like nuanced. I love all of them. I love the world. The Cruel Prince, The Lost Sisters, The Wicked King, and The Queen of Nothing, and How the King of Elfheim Learned to Hate Stories. So that's 5. I think that's all of them. And that's how I finished January. Boom. February. That's when we go back around to Crescent City. House of Flame and Shadows. I was promised a lot due to that crossover happening as a cliffhanger. Imagine you do like a crossover episode into, say, Harry Potter, and you don't get to see Hermione. Like, you have to hang out with like Fred and George, Ron. I'm making that comparison. Yeah. And you don't get to like see the main characters that you want to see. They're just kind of like in the world, but not really in the world because they're like not in the world that you're used to. They're in like an underground part. So it's like not even, it's, although I will say I like the way that the lore is matched up. It's just, I wanted more character interactions and more like, oh, she's from like modern times and they're in a fairy fantasy romance and I want to see what they do differently. Like I did. Okay, Sarah J. Maas, you kind of set yourself up for like, you really have to do a lot for the next ACOTAR if you do that. I feel like you have to. I don't know. I hope she's got a plan, girly. Then I did sort of a standalone, a deal with the Elf King. Forced proximity, if I recall, romance. It was okay. It was fine. And there are a lot of these are just fine. Then I did, okay, I did the Fae Chronicles, Fighting Destiny. There's 7 of them. Fighting, taunting, escaping, seducing, unraveling, embracing destiny, and crowning destiny. They were good! Okay, wait, don't start them. Okay, caveats. They kind of push the limit on what consent is. It's I would say this is DoomCon for a lot of it. And I will also say that the main character was she started off so like Mary Sue, so like, she's like a badass assassin who like She's a badass assassin who is really cool, and she wears rock t-shirts and she listens to rock bands. And the narration even includes like what rock song she's listening to at the time of whatever she's doing. And it was so cute and like a little cringe, but so cute. And I was so here for it because, okay, I don't know if I said this at the beginning, but I mostly listen to audiobooks. So that's how I'm consuming this media. I'm not reading the spelling of the names. I have no idea how these dumb names are spelled. I was horrified when Xaden, we'll get there. I don't think I could read this, but can I listen to it while I'm doing the dishes, going on a little walk, going on a run? Like, that's how I'm consuming this media. I'm not like studiously sitting down, highlighting and annotating. I am just like listening, and sometimes with my ADHD, I have to go back and listen again. So that's how it's happening, and that makes, I think, a lot of stuff more bearable. More like, I can get past things that are weird or cringy. I can get past dialogue that doesn't make a lot of sense. Honestly, I think that audiobook narrators do so much good work, and I'm here for it. It's like a performance. It's better than a podcast, for sure. Back to the Fae Chronicles and all the things she does with Destiny. I guess Destiny is kind of the guy. It's another instance of she basically keeps getting more and more powerful. It's like, oh no, you've somehow become more powerful than a human, and now you're more powerful than that thing, and now you took a potion and you're more powerful than that guy. There's something very wish fulfillment-y, but also enhances all of the fantasy, including the romance, I think, that she is this like ultra powerful being that like, if you try and F with her, you are F'd yourself. And the guy's gonna F you up, like, who hurt you, who did this to you, type of thing. It makes a lot of the like dubious romance stuff a lot more palatable, because you kind of know that she could end somebody if she needed to. I liked it. Maybe it just came at the right time. I'm gonna say that it is definitely like, these are photoshopped images of real women on the front. It's definitely like a self-published type of situation. If you're into that sort of thing, I liked the Fae Chronicles. It goes buck, it goes wild. Then I read in February A Touch of Darkness, A Touch of Ruin, A Touch of Malice, the Hades and Persephone? The Hades and Persephone series that is also like a low fantasy, I think, where it's set in modern day, but it's in like modern day New Athens. She's like a reporter. And he's Hades. And yeah, she's gotta go down there, okay? And she doesn't like it at first, but then she does. And I liked it. Once again, for some reason, all gifted kids had to learn so much about the Greek gods and Greek mythology. So here it comes again, and I'm like, I remember this part. That's Theseus. I recognize these characters. I love to see them go to the club. I love that. I will also say that the narrator for this, queen. Absolute queen of the game. And then I read Bride. Look, February is a big month. Feb. Because then I read Bride. I like it. Look, okay guys, I'm gonna like it. Okay? If it's vaguely good, if it's a little fun, I'm gonna like it. Okay, I like that. I like Bride, okay? I thought it was really cute that Allie Hazelwood takes us on basically a field trip where we're holding hands and we're like, she's like, and that there is the Omegaverse, and we're like, oh, hi. And then you like go back to regular romance land. Very fun. Very fun. Very fun. I recommend it. I like the main character. I like that her name's Misery. It's like a vampire werewolf thing. Very fun. Then, I told you this is a big month for February. 15 books. 15. I read The Fourth Wing, Iron Flame. I immediately rated Iron Flame a 5 out of 5. I think it is just like a very thrilling story I was thrilled. It's like very exciting, but it gives me Attack on Titan vibes. I'm just nervous for these characters and I have to know what's happening to them. I simply have to know so I know that they're okay. And I have to know what's going on with that little dragon. With the little one. I have to know. And now, and then like Iron Flame ends and I have to know what's happening with Xaden. Like I have to know. So I'll be reading Onyx Storm. Did I like it? I don't, in retrospect, know about Iron Flame. I don't know. The thing about the Iron Flame books, I'm invested in the war. I'm like, okay, but what are we gonna do about these mages, okay? Like, I'm kind of invested in the dragon fights. And I always like, skip it, go to the romance, skip it. But this time, I'm like, what's your tactic? This is the art of war, babes, okay? Then, the last thing I did in February was read The Stolen Heir, which is more Holly Black and more of Elfheim, and I love Oak, and I love Surin. I think they are so cute. Then we get to March. My amazing year of reading books stopped being amazing in February. The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Not from me. So here's what I'm gonna say. Here's what I don't like. I don't like suffering. I don't like when the characters suffer. I don't like when they're hurt. So I'm like, maybe fantasy romance isn't the one. Maybe I should just be reading regular romances, but then the stakes aren't high enough, so I don't know. I don't like the main character. I think she's rude. And I think that it's very clear she doesn't like him, and I don't understand why he would like her. You know? Like, why? She's literally saying, go away, I don't like you. And he's like, that's it, there she is. That's what I like to see. I don't believe that, I don't like that. And then we get to Six Scorched Roses. My favorite book of the series, favorite book of the month. Six Scorched Roses. It's two side characters. Okay, we've got Scientist Girly, who like doesn't understand social cues. We know what kind of code she is coded. And the guy is like sad. He's a sad boy. And it's so sweet. It was such a sweet novella, a sweet story. And I really forget what happens to them in the next one, The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. But I'm like, I would like to focus on them and not the like sassy girl who is rude to the guy, and that works for him, I guess. So yeah, wow, and I guess I'll read the next one. Then I read The Prisoner's Throne. That's another Holly Black, another Elfheim. We're talking about Surin. She's being smart. She's outwitting people, and it's very fun. I like an Ella Enchanted storyline. And what I mean by that is that you have to do what I say, and that's part of it. Like, magically, people have to do what she says, she has to do what people say. Those kind of rules, I'm like, oh, but they said, I like that kind of stuff. Maybe that's why I'm into fantasy romances. I like the fairy rules. I like that. So I guess March wasn't as bad as I thought. Okay, then we did the Bargainer series, Rhapsodic, A Strange Hymn, and Dark Harmony. I just never really got past the part where he was like her parent for the beginning of their relationship. And then it's like, yeah, I get it. He was like, oh no, ew, I'm gone. Like, leave it. But I did like that she was a siren. I don't feel like that's a kind of creature we see a lot of, or I see a lot of. So I'm like, oh, okay. Siren rules. Neat. Another Ella Enchanted, if you will. People have to do what she says, or sings. Then we did A Touch of Chaos, which is the ending of the Hades Persephone series for now. And it was another, like, we're gearing up for a big war. But the characters were fun. It was good. Then If you watch John's video, you'll know how I feel about this. Gideon the Ninth, which honestly, I tried to start it a million times, but I couldn't get into it. Maybe it was just like Tamsin Weir's writing style, but then I did eventually get into it. And you know what? Somebody sold this to me as like gay, and so I'm like, good, gay, great, finally. And it's like, there's no spice. There's no kissing. It's not romance. It's not a romance book. I forget who told me that. Mean of you to set me up like that, and then they never kiss. Like, but then April rolls around. I'm in Harrow the Ninth. I'm like, okay, Harrow, boss babe. Love this character. I love necromancy. I love this idea that like she has such control of bones that she can control the powder, and it's like crazy magic. I liked Harrow the Ninth. And then Nona the Ninth is probably one of my favorite books of the year. Nona is my favorite character probably of all time. I think it's so cool getting to see like this character's perspective and like the innocence and the naivety and also like all of this like crazy stuff going around, but you get it filtered through somebody who is out of it, like above it, out of it, not aware of it. So you kind of have to like piece together what's happening. It's clear, but Nona is just so like genuine and sweet, and I love her. I love her, favorite character. And it made up for the fact that this is not a romance, really. There's some. I'm really looking forward to Alecto. And also I will say about Nona the Ninth, it's my favorite because of all of the like history of necromancy that we get. I love that. I loved it. Then I read A Game of Fate, which is the Hades side of the Touch of Chaos, Hades Persephone story. It's like we go back to the first book and it's his side of the story, and I could not, y'all, I did not like, it ruined him. I'm like, he's a sweetie, and then I'm reading it and I'm like, he doesn't feel the way regular people do, and he's violent and he's like objectifying her and they don't like it. Yeah, the fantasy is that he's not like every other guy, right? Think about that. Then I read Kushiel's Dart, which is a work of art. It's a work of art. I'm sorry, but if you don't like Kushiel's Dart, you're stupid and bad and wrong. It's a perfect book. It's a perfect story. It's like a Bildungsroman of like a BD goddess lady. Come on, that's really fun. It was really, really good. I love the giant like epic world, and I love it wasn't spicy stuff happens, but it's not like the titillating it's kind. She's just matter of fact, like, this is my job and this is what I did. Then I read A Feather So Black, which is kind of like sexy Mean Girls with swans. It was fine. Then I read A Fate Inked in Blood. Guys, that one was bad. I don't like when our main character, our heroine, her whole thing is being chaotic. She's sassy, or she's impulsive, or she just does things based on her emotions. It's like, girl, you are TSTL, too stupid to live. You're gonna cut. What? Why am I watching you? You don't value your life or the people around you. Like, what are you trying to get everyone killed? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? I don't like her. I was like, honestly, kind of rooting for the bad guys in this book because I hated her so much. And like, the romance sucked. I hated it. I can't believe people like this book. Ew. Ew. Then I read The Foxglove King, which is, there's a duology, and it follows some like people with powers, kind of X-Men type god lore that I really liked. It was like, oh, these gods were just regular people at one point, and then some stuff happened, and then they're gods. And I like that as a lore. Then we go to May. And that's where I finished The Hemlock Queen, which is the second part of the duology. And yeah, it was good. I liked it. I think about the magic system a lot, but do I think about the characters and their relationship a lot? Not really. Not really. I learned a lot about poison though, and I like learning. Then I did, the King of Battle and Blood and the Queen of Myth and Monsters, which I did not finish. DNF'd the Queen of Myth and Monsters. If I hated A Fate Inked in Blood, their romance is so toxic and like also boring. They never progress past being dumb teenagers. And then of course there's a war that we have to go fight now. And it's, everyone's boring now because we have to fight a war. And the romance is like repetitive. Like they're together, they're mad at each other. He's evil, she's evil. Although this book did have one good thing, which is an embarrassing story that I get to tell. I was listening to this book, but not really listening. And I was like signing up for a singing class. And I wanted to show my family group chat like the singing class I was going to sign up for. So I took a screen recording of me scrolling the description of the singing class. And during the screen recording, I didn't know sound happened. So I sent part of this audiobook to my family group chat, and it was definitely a part of like how hard he was gonna do it and if she could take it or not. And my dad asks, is this one of your plays? Dad, thank you for your support. I didn't finish. I DNF'd it. I put it down with like 50 pages. No, less. 25 pages left. It was like nothing left of the book. And I'm like, I don't care what happens to these people. I don't care. I hate them and I don't care. Then in May, I get on the Leigh Bardugo train. And yeah, I loved it. Can I deal with, what's happening? I don't like historical fiction because again, I don't like suffering. and like, is the romance going to be enough to make up for that if we're in the Spanish Inquisition? And yes, actually, in The Familiar, it is enough that like the characters and like what's happening with them, and like, oh no, she's a witch because she's got magic, and like we do not want her to get inquisitioned. Or him. Like, it's really fun. I thought it was really interesting, and it's a standalone book. And we're done at the end. Then I read Ninth House, which was really, really good. I loved it. I loved the main character. She's okay, so like these authors are trying to do like she's like badass. She's like kind of a black cat, grouchy kind of person, and like she's just prickly because of what she's been through. And so many authors will try and make that the thing. Queen of Myth and Monsters, Fate Inked in Blood. But who does it best, or did it best? Leigh Bardugo here. I liked her. I cared about what happened to her. I cared about what she chose to do next. She was smart. She was competent. She didn't like run out and get people killed. Like she was prickly and like growly, but they made it where I like that. Well, now I like that. So good job, Leigh Bardugo. And then we get to Hellbent, and a lot of the things that I wanted to happen from Ninth House didn't happen in Hellbent, namely the romance. It's fun to say that Yale is evil for 2 books. Then I read Immortal Longings. I like the magic. Do I? I don't know about that magic system. It's very tricky to like suddenly inhabit someone else's body and now you get to use it like a meat puppet. Like, interesting. How's that gonna show up? I didn't read the second one because, again, the characters just weren't that interesting to me. There was like a lot of suffering, and this book did something that I do hate, and that I hated back, where you'd introduce a character and I'm just like holding my breath because I know they're gonna die. They're just gonna die horribly and traumatize our main character. That's just a pattern that I have come to recognize, that I think is cheap and that I think is awful to just like trivialize. I mean, they're fake. It's all fake, but it's like, oh, this person is introduced to die for the main character's development. Like, that's lazy. I'm upset because a nice character died. Like, stop upsetting me. It's like a little trick they're pulling on me, and it gets me every time, and I don't like it. Stop killing characters. Then I did Kingdom of Villains, which was cute. She is pursuing him, I think. I don't remember it very much, I'm sorry, but I did like it, I think. Then I read or listened to Shadows of Fire, which was another one that was like, okay, this needs another pass at an editor. And here I am thinking I'm getting into another The Fae Chronicles. I simply wasn't. I simply was not. And I read 5. I read 5 of those books. Shadows of Fire, Shadows of Discovery, of Betrayal, of Fury, of Destiny, of Light. 5 of them. And it's easy to just listen to. It's like, oh, what's happening with our werewolf daddy? This one's kind of interesting because there's like half fae, half what, like, and it's like you can be half vampire. And there's like portals they jump through, and that's kind of fun as well. But I think this is why there are 11 books, and I read 5. I read 5, okay? You're not gonna get me more than halfway. All of the characters would have to stand around and argue before any decision was made or any action was taken. Like, the action parts were pretty fun, but the standing around arguing about it for a chapter, did not like that. Then I read Kushiel's Chosen, which is a sequel to Kushiel's Dart, and I think I'm just gonna save those as little treats for little 30-hour treats for myself, because I like the world and I like the way that Jacqueline, that's her name, Jacqueline Carey, I like the way that she writes. It's very flowery, it's very formal, and it's about this lady who gets hurt in a hot way for not just a living, but like her calling in life. And that's like her whole reason to exist. And somehow within the fantasy, she becomes like more and more powerful, more and more respected. That's part of the fantasy. That's part of what I like, is that a woman can be in so many ways submissive, and like everybody can, like, y'all can do whatever you want, but at the end of the day, and I think that's also like maybe like a lazy girl's dream for like me to just like be best friends with the queen, and like I can do whatever I want. I'm super rich, and all I ever did was like have a really good time. I like that. That's real fantasy, okay? We've been visited. Wednesday's so powerful. Wednesday. Goodbye. Lock in. The rest of the year is not as long because I either read longer books or just had more going on because I didn't read as many books. So in June, I finished Shadows of ... where everybody argues before anything happens. And I would probably, like, I think I remember enough from last June to continue. I could read all 11 if I have nothing else to read, but listen to them. I don't think I need to. At this point in time, I don't need to. Okay, then I read, Entreat Me by Grace Draven. Are you kidding me? She's competent. She's older, widowed. She's interesting. She's smart. She's so funny. I loved our main character, and I loved the romance. It reminded me of a little bit Jane Eyre. Original, like, I love this guy. I don't know, I think I really like a cozy, we're stuck in a house. Sorry. It was really cute. It was really good. And it was really nice to read something that was well written after the ones that needed more editing. Then I got into another series that I read 5 books of. Only this time, that was all there was. I read all 5 books. And it's not self-published, but it does kind of give, like, okay, we start off, she's sassy, she's an assassin, she's a little badass, and she's damaged, and I'm sorry, she's a little bit effed up. And then, like, through the books and the rest of the characters, I'm like, I'm so into this. It was really hard when we were just focused on her relationship with the guy. It's another instance of she's just kind of a ding-dong and mean to him, and he's so into it because they are fated mates. I don't believe this or like this. In these situations, I'm like, hey, he's 500 and she's 20, and I don't like that. But then when it's ACOTAR, I'm like, well, whatever. Okay, so this is, I didn't even say the name of it. It's Lady of Darkness, and then Lady of Shadows, Lady of Ashes, Lady of Embers, Lady of Starfire. And I thought that the arcs of the book, I really liked. Our main antagonist was really interesting. I thought she was so interesting, and that I love that we got to see all of these different characters' points of view. The best friends falling in love was really cute, and we had one gay thing happen, finally! Then in July, I got into T. Kingfisher. So I read Paladin's Grace, Paladin's Strength, Paladin's Hope, Paladin's Faith. And those are books I would recommend to anybody. Like, your mom can read those, that's fine. It's spicy, but it's clever. The writing is cute and clever. The paladins are they're sweet, they're so honorable, and their whole thing is like, I have to do the right thing. And it's from their perspectives. There's 4 of them that I read. And they learn to love again after their god died. They come from this place of like sadness, but like still hope. And then they're the people that they meet and fall in love with. It's so sweet. And they usually solve some kind of mystery or terrible thing that's happening. I think about it all the time, the thing that was terrorizing them. Then I read Nettle and Bone, which kind of was a departure for me from fantasy romance. I didn't really know what to expect, and I often will read a book without reading the description or listen to it, because I think I can talk myself out of reading or listening to something, and it's harder for me to talk myself into it. So it's kind of like jumping in a cold pool. I'm like, I just have to do it. And that's how I find the things I love. It's also how sometimes I get 5 books into a series I don't care for. So Nettle and Bone, it's kind of fun. I like a necromancer. I like skeletons. Then we had What Moves the Dead, What Feasts at Night. Those were cool. They're also not romances. They're more like horror, unsettling things. And I like this version of fungus monsters, which, not a spoiler, you can see it on the cover. I like this, and I like the rabbits. I like rabbits when they're acting creepy. I think that's really fun. Oh my god, we're back to 2023 Margaret reading just horror. Until November, when I started fantasy romance, and it was all over for me. This is so long. I was just going to say the best and worst of each month, and that's probably like a 4-minute video. I felt like I needed to explain myself, and then there were some where I'm like, well, I gotta mention Bride. I gotta talk about it. You're welcome. Then I read For the Wolf, which I just realized there's a sequel to that I haven't read, and I think It was pretty good. And I'm a sucker for stories about sisters. Tell me what happens to the sister. And that's the second one. Although I think maybe I was a little scared. I'm a little scared of what happened to the sister. So maybe that's why I haven't started it, is because I'm afraid of suffering. So I haven't read the sequel for the queen, for the king, for the throne. Then I read some truly unhinged stuff with lovely bad things, lovely violent things, lovely wicked things. The 4 of those, and then maybe there's more, 3 of those, and then maybe there's, I don't know. And I think we're getting more of the like serial killer romances, so maybe it's not as shocking for people at this point in time as it was for me in August, where I'm like, he's a serial killer, babe. Arrest him. But the spicy scenes they're unhinged. They're unreal. It was so silly and so strange. And I think I might have really liked the second one and the like weird cult stuff. I thought that was really fun. Obviously, I've been off of the fantasy romance track for a minute here. Like a lot of horror stuff just kind of crept back into my life. And lovely bad things, lovely violent things, lovely wicked things was kind of a like, right. I like it when it's not modern day real life and he's not a serial killer. Although honestly, when you think about it, a lot of these like fae kings, they're probably serial killers. Like Hades, I didn't like hearing from Hades' point of view because he's got like serial killer thoughts. I don't like that. I'm like, keep it to yourself, hon. I don't want that. And then we got to, in August, the books that made me literally cry. Blood Mercy, Blood Solace. I read those 2 in August, and it's so sweet. It's so sweet. I think this is truly like my kind of book where, yes, there's bad stuff and there's like, it's very tense and there's like political stuff happening, but the romance between them is so like pure love and attraction. We've got the Hesperines, who are basically vampires, and when I read a description of this book, I saw a review that was like, somebody didn't like, oh, it's a perfect utopia over in the Hesperines side, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe I won't like that. Turns out, yes, I do. Actually, I like it when everything is peaceful and people get along and there's time for arts and crafts. Like, I love the 4th ACOTAR because it's about arts and crafts. Like, tell me about the arts and crafts, okay? Tell me about the time you lived forever and did stained glass and like sewed quilts. Like, I love that. And you're a vampire. And your source of food is doing stuff with your partner. Cute. I loved it. I loved it. It made me cry. These are long ass, 30 ass hours ass books, and I'm just still loving it. I want to know. I just like spending time with them. They're sweet. Then I read Morning Glory Milking Farm, which if you know, you know. If you don't know, it's high silly, high spice, Minotaur, milking. I adored it. It was cozy, it was sweet. They were just a couple of sweeties like stumbling into love. But also, I told like 8 people to read it and 1 person did. Thank you, JR. Then we move into the next month, whose name is September. Then I start with The Frostbound Queen, which is like a love triangle, and I forgot that that's why I started it. I was like, oh, love triangle, MMF. Love that for her, love that for him, love that for him. I kind of like when things feel cold. I like snow. I don't have to be in it, but they're in it. Wow, it is late at night. Then I read Feather, Celestial, and Starlight, which are, it's fantasy romance and it's low fantasy where it's like present day, but there's magic, and they're angels. So if you can imagine, I love now I've found these magic systems that are based on, oh, by the way, everyone gets a special power, lives forever, and gets along with each other. So you can imagine when I find these books that are set in heaven for half of it, they're angels, come on. I loved every single one of them. I like the lore, I like the world building, the romance between them, I cried. Because there's actually some sad stuff that happens in this one. Lots of good stuff does also happen. I highly recommend them. If you're like, what would angels do? Tickle each other's wings. That's a thing in all of these. Like, tickle his wings. Then I read Daughter of No Worlds and Children of Fallen Gods. October rolls around. I'm at Mother of Death and Dawn. And okay guys, I get it. I get why people like these so much because the world building is intense, the character is multifaceted, there's many characters, there's lots of stuff that happens. I will say, some of the cycles started happening where it's like, they're together. Oh no, they're ripped apart. They're both horribly tortured for a long time, and then they rescue each other, and then they're together. Oh no! Horrible torture. How many times are we gonna do this? How many times? How many times do I have to like go on this ride with you? Because they're good together, they're good characters, but the suffering was a little too much. I wouldn't read them again. But if you said you liked them, I'd be like, yeah, it was a good one. Did I like it? I don't know. So October, One Dark Window. That one, I guess I don't know why I didn't read that earlier. Oh, because it cost money and I couldn't get it for free. I think it was fun. I think it was interesting, and I will think about the way that she had like a thing living in her head. The card magic, that was interesting. I very much expected into Twisted Crowns, the sequel, which I also read in October, I expected a little more of like the first couple to like have their moment. And I didn't feel like I got enough of that in the second book, although we did get a whole new romance. Then I read Bury Your Gaze, so I'm back on my horror shit, but it was so good! And you know how I'm like begging for gay stuff to happen? Chuck Tingle bringing it in! And this is not your Chuck Tingle, you've looked at the cover and you're laughing because that's like a printer getting blasted by the concept of the morning news. It's a very genuine like horror book. It's just like a regular ass horror book, only it's really good. Only it's really, really good. So I think everyone should read it. It was like my favorite book of the year. Everybody should read Bury Your Gaze. I said it. Favorite book of the year. I said it. We're almost done. Then I read A Court This Cruel and Lovely. And then November. A Kingdom This Cursed and Empty. And then A Crown This Cold and Heavy. Ooh. She kind of made up this whole magic system in like society where there's people with magic, people without magic, and then there's people who are the children of those people, and maybe they have it, maybe they don't, but they always do. So whatever. Very epic level, like wars. And like, oh no, they're gonna die. I wasn't that interested in it, but I wouldn't say it was bad. So then in November, I also read Heaven's Crooked Finger, which is just a straight horror set in somewhere in Appalachia. Ooh, spooky. For a time in like 2022, my thing was probably detective television shows, and it was really giving like a mini series. But I liked it, it was scary. Then I read another fave, Strange the Dreamer. It is so good. It's like another one where I just love the like pure-hearted, kind protagonist. Our protagonist just wants to like go have an interesting life, and he just wants to like help and be a part of things. And I'm like, yeah, I want to be a part of things. I want to help. I love that. Then I read Muse of Nightmares, which is like the sequel of Strange the Dreamer. We get to know more about the Godsborn and the citadel that's floating over the city. It gave very much like, okay, you wrote that, Lady Taylor, and now you have to explain what you meant by that. But she did, and it was great. I read Our Hideous Progeny, which is another horror book, which is a sequel to Frankenstein. And I thought that was, I loved it. I loved the creature she made, the drama, the way that it was written. It was gay. Big fave, big fave. Then I read Nectar of the Wicked and Wrath of the Damned, which I liked, didn't like, liked. Like, I kind of went back and forth because we had this like innocent, naive heroine, and then these books, I swear, she gets like tortured and like, oh, she's betrayed by the guy that she's in love with. The book is basically about her getting her like groove back. I mean, yeah, there's also like a kingdom and a war and all that stuff. And we also learn like how truly deeply insecure the main guy is. I kind of like this one a little better than ones where it's like, she's a badass. It's like she starts off knowing nothing until she's like, actually, I have learned what it is to not want that to happen. That one was fun. It was fine. And then I ended the year, the last one that I read was Blood Sanctuary Part 1, where I got to spend time with my favorite Hesperines and my arts and crafts vampires. So I'll be reading more of those books moving forward. So my big goal for this year is to figure out Libby and figure out renting audiobooks and ways to not spend a lot of money. I had been using an Everand/Scribd subscription, and man, that app sucks now. Like, that is bad. I couldn't even see my list of like books that I've read. I just hopefully saved it. Audiobooks can get so pricey. Like, I'm probably going to drop several tens of dollars on Onyx Storm because I don't think there's going to be another way for me to immediately read that as it immediately comes out in like 2 weeks. So I'm trying not to spend as much money, so I'm going to figure out how to rent books from the library, and we'll see what I get up to. Maybe I'll even tell you what I'm reading and it doesn't take a whole year. Maybe. Okay, thank you for watching. Go watch John's video. It's cute. Bye.